Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paul, and I am a nerd, and you are fortunate enough to be here with Mary Jo and myself for the December holiday edition of the year 2015 of the Tabs3 virtual user group meeting. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and welcome to an exciting back and forth session with WIP as the main subject. WIP, work in process, how to transfer it, how to change it. Mary Jo's going to talk about transferring it. I'm going to talk about changing it. I'm trying to press the magic button here. Oh, I hate computers. There we go. Without any further ado, more magic buttons. And Mary Jo is going to tell us all about transferring work in process in Tabs.
Okay, so we've all done it. We've all put in a whole bunch of time entries and realized that we had it underneath the wrong matter or the wrong client altogether, and now we have to move them from one matter to another. And it could be fee entries, it could be cost entries, or it could even be payments that we have to do that for. So what I'm going to talk about is how to do that and where to go. So under the transaction tab, and I'm going to I have no control, Paul. Not giving me any control.
She always says that. Hold on a second. Let me give you keyboard and mouse again. Do you know any lawyer jokes you can tell while I'm doing this?
I don't know any lawyer jokes, but I will tell you that I don't ramble, so it's kind of, this will be the quiet time.
I'm trying to go quickly here. Hold on.
That's okay.
Mary Jo Boyd. See, it says you have keyboard and mouse, but I'm going to take it away.
And give it back.
Give it back. These darn computers. Is it bad for me to admit that I hate computers? Is this a bad time for that?
There, I think I've got it. Okay, so we're going to click on the transaction tab, and right here is a little transfer transactions. You can see the little dollar going back and forth there. So we click on that. You can make this backup if you like. I'm in just sample data, so I really don't care, so I'm just going to do that. And what you have to know is which matter are you going to move it from, which matter are you going to move it to. So if I go down and pick somebody that has WIP time, and I think this guy does, we'll hope, and we're going to move it over to John Williams. We're just going to completely move it to another client. Now, I could have picked 102 and moved it to 101. Again, I don't even know if I have WIP in here, so hopefully I picked wisely. So we'll go ahead and move it. And now I do have fees available because I can see that fee lit up here. You saw everything else was grayed out. If I had cost, that would also light up and become available. If I had payments, that would become available, and so on. So I'm just going to move the entire fee. I just want fees only. Now, I can pick whether I just want a certain transaction code that I want to move, a certain timekeeper. Maybe I only entered the time for one timekeeper, and I just want to move their time. I don't want anybody else's. I can choose that timekeeper. I also can do billing category. I only want to move a certain category to a category, or date range. Maybe I just want, December 1st through December 1st. I just want that time that I entered with that date. So you can get very choosy here. Otherwise, you can just use this beginning reference number, and I just do the drop down so I can see the time. And if I have a reference number that's in order, I'm going to reverse this so that it's ordering it smallest to largest. If I know that it's 1 through 5, I could just put beginning reference number 1 through 5 and just move those entries. If I only needed 1 and 2 and 4 and 5, I would have to do 1 to 2 and then 4 to 5, or I would move 3 as well. You can't just pick and choose, unfortunately, and check them off and say just move those. You have to have a range of some reference numbers. So again, 1 through 10 or 12 if it's all of them. I can leave it blank if it's all of them. But if I want to range 1 through whatever it is or 2 through whatever it is, and to pick what I want to move. So in my case, I'm just going to move this first one. I just want this very first initial client meeting to be moved. So I have 1 through 1. I'll say OK, and then all that's going to move, and it will tell me right here, transferred 1 fee transaction. This should tell you if this is 0, then something was wrong. Either there wasn't something that fell in that range or something was not right, but this should tell you how many it moved, and it should be at least 1. So that should be there. Task completed, I say OK, and that time entry is now moved. If I had chosen cost, I'd have those same options. Payments, the same thing. The only caveat I'm going to tell you is the AR ledger and client funds balance. Sometimes we think, oh, you know what, I put that in client funds and I want to move client funds from this to that. That's not what this is doing. This is going to move everything. All AR, all ledger, all client funds. You can't pick and choose, and it will wipe out everything that was ever on that original client. And the only reason that you would ever pick this button is if you accidentally maybe created two of the same client. Let's say somebody entered it as 123 and somebody else entered it as 125 the next day and didn't realize that client already existed, and you want to combine those and move everything from the one into the other, and then you're going to delete one. That is probably 99.9% of the time why you would ever use this button. Otherwise, it becomes available and you can use it, but you do not want to.
Now, could we clarify? You said, was that 3 evers plus the original ever, or was it 4 evers?
Ever.
Okay.
Ever.
Very,
as many
very
as you, I'm emphasizing it very much because you do that, you can't get it back. You're going to have to, you could renumber the client into something, but you're moving everything over to that other client, not just what you're choosing. So fee, cost, and payments, those are probably what you're going to use most of the time. Once in a great while, you may have to move this just because you want to delete one of the clients and just have one. So that's it. If you do something incorrectly or put it into the wrong place, that's where you go. That's how you fix it. Pretty simple. And if you have more than one client that's happened to, you'll have to do it in stages. But for most part, you're going to put it under one and need to move it to another. So, Paul?
Me? Is it my turn?
It's your turn.
Okay. Well, that's what to do when you put something in the wrong place. I'm going to talk...
Before you get out of that, Paul, just real quick, that verification list there, too, is helpful. I would print that or view it just to make sure that what you thought you moved, you moved. So you can preview that just like you can with a fee or cost or payment verification. But this tells me which entry I moved in from where, so I can see right away that I moved one entry from 100 to 102 and what that entry was. So this is important in case you do something, you maybe accidentally move it to the wrong thing. This is your verification. You can move it back. So that's helpful too.
Very good.
Yep.
Okay, so that's what to do when you put something in the wrong place. Here's what to do when you simply want to change something because you did something wrong. Maybe you didn't do something wrong. Maybe somebody else did something wrong. Or maybe you have a whole bunch of entries for a certain matter that are on hold and now it's time to build them. This is called change WIP transactions. And just like Mary Jo said that we're not going to back up our data because this is sample data, you would be sure to back up your data before you do this in case something bad happens, like the power goes out while it's in the middle of doing this. It's not that you may move them someplace and want to get them back. That's not why you're backing up your data. It's not that you're changing something with what I'm showing you and want to just get it back to where it was. It's if the power goes out or you have a network failure or you have some sort of a problem during the actual move or the actual change, you could have scrambled files that totally need to be restored.
But it could be, Paul, if they mass move something to the wrong place and they can't figure out which is it's all mixed, you may want that backup for that reason too.
What I want to emphasize is that if you're like me, you think, oh, no, I would never do anything wrong. I don't need to back up. That's not the only reason that you want to back up. Now, when you're changing things, there are 2 screens where you decide what you're changing, and then there are 2 screens where you decide what you're changing it to. So let's first talk about what you're changing. The most important thing I can tell you is that as a safeguard, if there are any attorneys that are listening right now, I apologize, but in order to guard against attorneys accidentally ending up in here and accidentally changing something en masse, they have it so that when you come in, it says blank through 0. What that means is that if you were not to take these zeros out of here and were to go and then change something en masse, it wouldn't change anything because it's saying don't change anything by having those zeros in there as a default. So the very first thing you need to do is specify which client or which matter you want to do this to. And if you forget, that set of zeros, that 0.00 is there to keep you from accidentally changing whatever you tell it to for everyone. So what you really do is you say, well, I want to change all of Michael Larson's matter 00. Okay, and so that becomes the beginning and ending client for the change. Now you can also do all sorts of neat things like say, oh, I want to change everything for which primary timekeeper is Bob, or which where secondary originating timekeeper is a certain person, or all of the auto-neg category, Or just like any other report, any report that you could run in Tabs, you can do things like specific billing frequencies, specific locations, specific open and close dates, or certain other things like whether they're active or inactive, progress or non-progress billing, all of this stuff. So these are ways that you can specify what client you want to do this to and what matter, what range of matters based on timekeeper, what range of matters based on status, whatever the case may be. This is where you tell it what transactions you want to affect. And most often what you're doing is you're changing fees. Maybe you have a bunch of fees on hold. Maybe you have a bunch of fees that got entered with the wrong rate for a certain client, whatever the case may be. And so you would specify which fees, and if necessary, you'd say which timekeeper. 1 through 1 would be whoever 1 is. That's Michael Jensen, or a certain date range, or a certain transaction code, or a certain category. It's very frequently that you will pick a date range and a person, a timekeeper. All of Bob's time from November needs to be changed to $150 an hour instead of $175 an hour. I'm going to leave these blank because I don't even know if I can get transactions for what I'm specifying for Michael Jensen. So normally you would come in and say certain timekeeper, certain date range, certain something. And then these screens allow you to change things. For instance, if you had a whole bunch of entries on hold, you could pick the specific transactions and the specific client and say, set them to print. Or if you had a whole bunch of entries that were set to print and you wanted to change them all to hold, you could do that. Or if you had the wrong date, maybe somebody entered all of Bob's time from last Friday, but they used Saturday's date. You could change it from one date to another. So if the old date was last Saturday and we really wanted it to be last Friday, that's what we would do. Keep in mind we're in sample data and it thinks it's, November 15th, Mary Jo, something like that, okay? Now, other things you can change. Specific types, convert T code to task code. If you mistakenly set this client up as not being a task code client, and so everything went in with transaction codes instead of phase and activity codes, you could then say, okay, convert all the meeting with client or all the preparation for depositions from the code for preparation for deposition to whatever, or from a certain phase task from an old to a newer, certain activity expense to older new. Maybe use the wrong phase, the wrong activity, or maybe you didn't charge sales tax and you should have, or you charged sales tax and you shouldn't. That doesn't happen very often for our clients. Or you had everything accidentally entered as non-billable and you now want to change it to billable, okay? Or you had the fee category wrong, or most often it's this. The client got set up with the wrong rate, they got set up accidentally with 175, and we're really supposed to be charging 200, okay? Now, I don't know if this is going to change anything because I've told it to change rate, and I'm specifically saying change 175 to 200, and that means there have to be entries in there at 175. So I'm actually going to jump back and change this. I'm going to change all transactions for this client to hold. Maybe for some reason we need to hold them, other than just holding the bill. You wouldn't just put all the transaction on hold just to keep the bill from printing that month. That would be tedious and ridiculous. But if you had a reason to change these all to hold, this would be the way to do it. It finds 11, it changes 11, and bam, we're done. And just like Mary Jo showed you, when we get out, there's a verification list that's printed. Do you want to print it? Yes. Preview it. And these are the 11 fee transactions and their reference numbers that were changed to hold. And just for good measure, because this is a demo system and I'm always finding myself in the middle of a demo saying, gosh, somebody did something stupid in our demo data again, I'm going to go change them back. And I'm going to pretend like I'm doing that to accentuate the point, which I am, but I also want to do it to get my demo data back to where it belongs. So I'm going to take 100, which is Michael Larson. I'm going to take everything. I'm not going to specify a specific transaction. And I'm only going to do the fees. And I'm going to change them all back to print. And hopefully it'll tell me it did 11. It does. And there we have it. Mary Jo has showed you how to take stuff and move it from one client to another if it actually accidentally gets entered on the wrong client. I've shown you how to change it if it got entered on the right client or the right matter, but it got entered wrong as non-billable instead of billable, as hold instead of print, the wrong date, the wrong rate, whatever the case may be. I actually had somebody contact us, somebody we'd never dealt with, and maybe she's here today because I sent her the link for this live event. And this was a big deal to her last Friday at about a little after 5 our time, but I think it was the afternoon where she was out on the West Coast. And she needed to have this done by the weekend, and she actually said she loved me after I sent her back the pictures to tell her how to do this. So it's huge. If you have a need to change dozens or sometimes hundreds of entries, this can be a lot easier than going in one by one and doing that. So let's talk about next month. Next month our topic will be, now don't tell anyone because it may not be, but it probably will be version 18. Why do I say it that way? Well, version 18 was supposed to come out in the beginning of December, and they pushed it back to the end of December. So when we scheduled what we were going to talk about in January, we said we were going to talk about version 18, and we still think we're going to talk about version 18. But if they do push it back anymore, and it's back to where it's released after our virtual user group meeting at the end of next month, we'll have to change this. But I don't think that's going to be the case. So we plan, Mary Jo and I, in one of those fast-paced back-and-forth sessions to show you at least a glimpse of absolutely everything that's happening in version 18. It's very exciting from an accounting standpoint and a billing standpoint, and there's a few neat things in Practice Master too, but for the Tabs virtual user group meeting, which is where we are now, there's a lot of neat stuff in there, and we're going to try and cover absolutely everything, at least a glimpse of. And then in the coming sessions afterwards, we'll go into some great detail on certain features that are just too cool to not go into great detail on. And so with that in mind, if you want version 18 right now, I think you can still do this. We're going to pretend like we can. If you go to a web browser and go to tabs3.com/pre-release, you should get to a place that tells you a little about version 18 and gives you a form to fill out to sign up for the pre-release. As I said, you can get it right now. If you don't want to wait until the end of the month or whenever it's released to the general public, you can get it right now. Keep in mind that once it gets released, there won't be a form for you to fill out if you want it as quickly as possible. So if you want it as quickly as possible, take advantage of this right now because this form will go away and then it'll just be rolled out slowly to people and you'll have to go through me or directly to STI if you want to try and get it ahead of your quote-unquote time. And while we're here on the web, let's talk about attorneycomputersystems.com. Notice the emphasis, the obvious emphasis on that letter S there. Got to spell it right, attorneycomputersystems.com. This is our website, and this is where you'll find out all of the time, what the topics are for the next virtual user group meetings, not only for Tabs, but also for Practice Master and World Docs. We have 3. We have a World Docs, a Practice Master, and a Tabs 3 virtual user group. We call those our water coolers, so this page will describe those. We have our coffee pot webinars that I give every month. We have Mary Jo's eBite video series where she records 3 of these each month, one on Tabs, one on Practice Master, one on World Docs. And we have that ever popular Paul and Mary Jo show. It's almost as popular as the Lucille Ball show, but not quite, where Mary Jo and I take a topic and kind of split up. One month I'll do something, the next month she'll do something, and we explain something in much greater detail than the shorter eBites videos that Mary Jo makes. And so if you ever want to know what's coming up, click on the appropriate virtual user group meeting, and here you can see we've already got it switched out for January. This is a sign-up link for our next month's Tabs 3 virtual user group meeting, but then as I scroll down, here's where we are right now, And so this is currently in post-production, but it'll be up on the site in a few days or maybe a week. And then as you scroll down even further, here are recorded versions of every Tabs3 virtual user group that we've ever done when we've been recording them, and that's years and years of content. So if you want, feel free to come here and scroll through and browse through all this stuff, or you can just go up here and say something exciting like email statements, something that's high on everyone's priority list, and you'll probably find right off a virtual user group meeting or other piece of content, a Paul and Mary Jo show, an e-bite, some piece of content on our website that talks about whatever it is you're looking for. So take advantage of that too. It's out there. It's free. Some people stay up all weekend long watching these. I question their sanity, but they do it anyways. So everybody have a good Christmas, a good holiday, a good New Year, and we will see you in 2016. Bye-bye.